welcome to Brave Voices in Education, the podcast where boldness meets brilliance and healing meets hustle. I'm Craig Aarons Martin, educator, advocate, and curator of courageous conversations. This space is for ones who refuse to shrink. Are you ready to enjoy this hot cup of courage, baby? Let's brave it together. So today's guest is someone who doesn't just connect educators. She amplifies their voices and builds global communities rooted in equity, innovation, and joy. Dr. Sarah Thomas, yes, PhD, you heard me. Or as the culture knows her, Sarah the teacher is not just an EdTech expert. She's a digital disruptor, a bridge builder, a visionary who uses tech not as a gimmick, but as a tool for liberation and belonging. She is the founder of EduMatch, a worldwide network that connects educators based on passions and purpose. Through podcasts, books, PDs, virtual community spaces, she's made sure that educators around the globe are not just heard, but empowered to lead from wherever they are. When she's not speaking on the international stages, baby, yes, she global. Or coaching leaders in digital equity, she's showing us that real leadership looks like in public schools as a regional tech coordinator, a mentor, and a movement maker. Her brilliance, Sarah's brilliance, lives at the intersection of culture and code, community and creativity. She doesn't gatekeep. She builds doors. Yes, she does. She doesn't wait for permission. She invites possibility. So today we're about to dig into joy, justice, and all things tech powered and people centered. Sarah, welcome to the Brave Voices in Education podcast. How
Thank
is
you.
your heart today?
So good, so good, especially after that introduction. My goodness, my friend, that was beautiful. Thank you so very much, and I'm honored to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me into your space, and I'm excited to get into the convo.
Yes. Well, for folks who may not know you, I mean, I know there's probably a couple of pockets who are sitting in Nebraska, sitting right in Cornhuskers. They might actually be sitting, we had somebody from, I don't know, Ethiopia last week who just kind of tapped in and was like, all right, they are listening. And so for those the very few who may not know who you are, could you share a little bit more about your arc of how have you arrived at being the Dr. Sarah Thomas that you are today?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. And just a little bit about me. I've been in education for 20 years. It's crazy to think that, but this is year 20. I've taught everything from first grade all the way up to 12th grade, as well as in a master's in ed tech program. And I've worked in central office. I actually came through teaching through alternative certification. So that was interesting. I had a background in radio, TV, film, but that actually served me very well in the education profession. I love it. And I would also characterize myself as a daughter, a wife, a mother, a sister, and a friend. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
There's so much to it. There's so many layers. We'll pick just a little bit because we got to slow those folks. They can't overwhelm their systems with all this goodness.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a question for you. When did you realize your voice wasn't just powerful, it was necessary?
Ooh, I appreciate that. And it's I would say that I've done a lot of reflecting recently, especially because just right now, the state of the world that we find ourselves in, it's I'd taken a back seat after the pandemic. I'd kind of pulled out a little bit. I'd taken some things off of my plate because we were talking like pre-show and a lot has changed in personal life, like I got married, I had a daughter, so a lot of things that I was doing, I had to kind of put on pause, put on ice. But I would say I had a very recent awakening where I just kind of saw where we are right now. Like nothing's ever been perfect, but just the dismantling of progress, it's like it's been two steps forward and I heard somebody say it's like seven steps back,
Hmm.
and so that realization in itself was enough to kind of put a battery in my back, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I was just like, I gotta, I gotta say something. I gotta do something. I have to be part of the solution because all of us have to be part of the solution. Right now, it's all hands on deck. Nobody can afford to sit on the sidelines while all of this is going on. So I would say that would be like my reset moment where I knew I had to be back in.
And what are you hoping that people are hearing as you are not only taking care of yourself and your family, but
Mhm.
now you are actually really engaging a number of us. Like I get to be in community with you in the Edu cause community, and actually we're in a number of spaces.
Yeah.
But what are you hoping people will hear from you as a global leader that we have actually been in community with for so long now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just say that educators have been the public scapegoat for a very long time, but there's so much power that we hold when we come together collectively. We have the power to disrupt, we have the power to shift the narrative. And I feel like my role is as a community organizer, on a national side, on a global side, we're trying to continue to grow our global presence. But it's going to take, like I said, it's going to take all of us coming together to really make that change, to do what our students need, and especially in times like these, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the things that I'm thinking about, I just spent some time just before our call, kind of revisiting my TikTok, which for the Black Boy Joy Summit, like looking at that,
Mm,
and I was sharing with you before, like me and the hubby are definitely had as part of our North Star to have a young person or young people who we would be able to pour into. And some of the things that I'm thinking about are some of my students who, when I was teaching in fifth grade, I was teaching in third grade, I was teaching as an EdTech educator, some of those when I was a principal, when they encounter me in these different places via social media, what are they hearing? And I'm
yes.
also thinking about, well, what when it is my time or our time to have a young person or young people, what is
Mhm,
it that I want to be the canon? Because I want to be on the right side of history this time. I want to
mhm,
make sure that at every measure of breath in my body, that I continue to champion civil and human rights, that
mhm.
everyone can be humanized, that I want us to actually start building a 2029 plan, just like somebody built a 2025. I'm like, why are we not figuring for every measure of what you are trying to take away, dismantle? We are going to rebuild, or we are going to actually construct something new and innovative that
Yeah.
actually puts the hearts and minds of people first. And so, what are the messages I want to pour into young people today? Because
Mhm,
I think many of us have read like high schoolers are disengaged, right? Youth is disengaged. They're no longer motivated. They're feeling a whole bunch of different emotions and whatnot. And what I want to make sure that I do, especially on my Black Boy Joyce site as well as others, is continue to pour messages of possibility,
mhm.
positivity, and also being able to share like these are nuggets of the way, like for every class I taught about the Underground Railroad or about a liberation movement, civil rights movements, I also want to make sure that they see like this is now contextualized in our real modern day experiences now. We
Exactly.
cannot afford to allow our young people to feel like they need to sit back, that they actually hide and shrink. Because if they have a relationship with me and they as a teacher they believe anything that I share with them, I now have to actualize that in my walk and in my work. I can't just talk about it as context of a lesson. I now need to externalize and share insights on how this looks today, and I'm hoping that others are also being very thoughtful about that too.
Absolutely. And so much you said there, so much just resonated. Like you had me thinking back to, I remember my final year in the classroom with my students, and there was just so much going on at the time. I believe that, oh my goodness, I'm trying to remember. That was 2015. So I think that was the year, right at the beginning of the school year, where Michael Brown was murdered. And, we came back to that. We came back to like just heavy feeling on all of us. And I remember that one of the activities that we did at that time was just a space for students to share and to get off their chest what was happening and their feelings about it. And they could say whatever they wanted. I was not going to, I was not going to share to try to shape their thoughts, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But just them putting their thoughts on paper, their thoughts digitally, because we did it in a blog form at the time. But I mean, now you have so many different options with the students being able to podcast and, vlog and still blog and things of that nature. But just hearing what they had to say And just the power in that room collectively, as we made like a blog out of everything, it was just a really powerful experience. And, definitely leaning into our students and having them claim their power
Yeah.
and yeah, and definitely activate.
Yeah, I also think about, my intersections of being queer, and just the like the Trevor Project. I think that like it gets better, and I remember how I felt when I saw some of our, Black and Latina trans sisters who were being murdered, but
Mm,
still so many folks were still standing up. And I think about, you talked about Michael Brown, I think about Trayshawn,
mhm,
as well, and so many of those where our young people are like, I can't believe this is happening. We're seeing this socialized across the media and across the globe, and it created a movement because for once in someone's experience, they saw something that was so tragic. They were like, I cannot allow this to happen on my watch, and figure out how do we mobilize our energy and our effort in the way of righteousness and in the spirit of compassion, which is absolutely necessary in the environment we're in. And
mhm,
so as I think about, some of the incredible work that you've done, you've built communities across countries, time zones, Zoom rooms. But I'm curious for you, you talked about the journey of kind of stepping back during, in the pandemic. And
mhm.
I, am curious for you, you decided, hey, I need to pause. I need to slow down. I have a family that I have to take care. I have to take care of my own needs, and I know you made some shifts. And so I'm curious for you, if you felt like, what was the thinking about, okay, I'm pulling myself out of this, because being a global leader and then saying, all right, I'm gonna step back, also meant that people who have been accustomed to your voice and presence were no longer
Mm.
seeing you. And so I'm just curious for you, what was surfacing for you? What were you learning about yourself, and how does that translate to your emergence now?
That is such a great question. And I would say that it was extremely difficult to do this, but it was necessary at the time, especially after the birth of my daughter. It was a very joyous occasion, but it was a very difficult occasion at the same time, just as, major life transition is. And I knew that she is my big rock, you know. I remember one day very clearly I was driving down the street and I was thinking, okay, I have this, and this that I need to do. And I said, but I have like a 3-month-old daughter and she needs me. And I don't want my Saturdays to be mommy's working all the time. I want my Saturdays to be reserved for swim practice, for music classes, for soccer games, things like that. And so I just had to make that decision at that particular time to just reprioritize where I was putting my attention. I never fully stepped away, even if I wasn't as visible. A lot of times I was in the background. EduMatch got really into the publishing space for a while. And so we were cranking out books, cranking out books, cranking out books, and it aligned with our mission to amplify the voices. Unfortunately, it was extremely time and resource intensive. So we have a dynamic team, but there's only a few people on our leadership team. And with the pandemic and the shift to remote learning and the mindsets and the perspectives and things of that nature, we had some other areas that we wanted to focus on as well. So that was one of the things that we had to take a hiatus on. And just looking back, just seeing like the transformation, I think that we made, well, I can say more than I think. I'm confident that we made the right move to pause that because uh, not only on the business side of things, but also on the personal side of things, we only have so much bandwidth. And if we are spread super thin, then other things will suffer. And there were some things that I just refused to let suffer. So that was the way that I was able to kind of process it and make that very difficult decision. And you can ask members of my team. I was just like, "Oh, we should bring back the publishing." Like every couple months, I'm like, "Oh, we need to bring it back." But we will bring it back in time. Just right now is not the time yet, but it'll come back.
And I've definitely had an opportunity to digest some of those wonderful authors and titles from your community,
Thank you.
and grateful that you and your team made a decision that you wanted to amplify voices that otherwise may not have been heard in the major publishing market, and as well as some of the other offerings that EduCause actually has as well. And so I'm curious for you, is there a story of a person who, when they came through, their book was published or their show, or some part of the experience they had was so profound, so prolific, you're like, this is why I actually created this? And could you share a little bit more about that person or that moment when you're like, yes, this is what this was created for?
So I'm trying to think of a particular person because I've had people come back to me and tell me about the impact, that sharing their story has had on them. But I got to say, it's really the magic of that individual. I'm just grateful that they allowed me to support them in amplifying it. But I would say the project that I'm probably the most proud of, and you might say this is a cop out because it's like an anthology, but our very first project was the EduMatch Snapshot in Education. And we designed it to be a free anthology for the community just to kind of give back to the educational space. And we started publishing it in 2016. And it was just kind of an experiment because in our Voxer group, one day we were talking about long-term goals. What do people want to do? And everybody, well, not everybody, but several people said that they wanted to publish. They wanted to be a published author. So at that point, that was our very first experiment. I said, let's go ahead and try it. So we put together this anthology. These 20 people trusted me enough to each submit a chapter.
Yes.
And that like set it off for everything. Like once that book was published in 2016, we followed it up every single year. I think that the only year that we actually took off was the year that my daughter was born. But we've done that every year since 2016. And I'm just, I'm so proud of all of the contributors
Mm-hmm.
throughout the years. Like, I don't know how many we've had total, but I would say it's absolutely more than 50,
Mm-hmm.
that have submitted, and several repeat folks have submitted. And just getting that snapshot every year to see what education looks like I want to go back and read 2016 because we're almost 10 years like from that, and just kind of seeing. I know that people were first starting to dip their toe into the connected water. Like people started doing that, early 2010s, in terms of PLNs and things like that. But there was like kind of a massive movement to get connected around the mid 2010s. So that's kind of what we're seeing, what we might see in the very first book, and just to see how different it is now with everything that has come up, like the rise of generative AI, things of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
and we've tried to pivot with it over the times as well. So it's been a very interesting journey, but that's what kicked it all off. So I'm super proud, of everyone who has lent their voice to that project.
Yeah, I think that you're dimming the light a little bit. So I decided, let me go ahead and pull up the membership real quick. I'm gonna pull up the receipts for the folks. So it seems like when I look on the EduCause myself, I'm seeing 115,000 members. Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. Not that one. Hold on. I'm gonna type in chat. My bad.
Okay. All right. I'm like,
Let me
wait,
see.
hold up. Let me make sure that I am actually reading this correctly, because I'm like, it seems pretty extensive in regards to how many people are part of the community.
Well,
Let's
I
see.
do appreciate that,
Let's see.
but
Let's see. As you met. Sorry. Sorry.
no
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
No
That
problem.
is that is so Craig made a mistake, and he misnamed. I'm sitting here thinking about two things at the same time. I was
Very
sitting here thinking about the generative AI, and the question I wanted to ask you, because I want to talk about us showing up in AI, but then I was like, there's some numbers things that I'm messing up. So how many folks are you actually touching today? How many people call themselves a EduMatch?
So that's a really good question. It's hard to quantify because we don't have like a full membership platform yet, but we do have our reach over social media groups. when we were using Twitter, which we're no longer doing, then at that point we had over 30,000 that we were connected with. We also have a Facebook group with over 1,000. We have Voxer groups, we have Instagram, we have Blue Sky, the list goes on and on and on. But at any given time, we have several hundreds of active participants in our different capacities through our webinars, through our tweet and talks, through our various initiatives. So yeah, so I'm just really excited to be connected with all of the amazing folks within our network.
Yes, yes. I would love to lean in a little bit more about generative AI and just
Yeah.
some of the conversations I know I'm having with folks. How are people of the global majority showing up or not showing up in generative
Mm,
AI? The various ways, especially for us to leverage it to actually make sure our voice is absolutely heard. And so I'm curious, what is inspiring you? What are you on fire about in regards to the technologies as they're evolving, the AI work that for some folks feels a little too much for them because they don't know where to start. But then for some of us who are a little bit more comfortable with it, we're constantly hoping that we'll see a lot more of us in positive light. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what's exciting you about the newest technologies that we are seeing today, that you're working with folks on, in your work and in your walk.
absolutely. And I feel like I could go on and on about this. So I'll try to be concise. But yeah, generative AI, I've been very interested in this since around 2015. I remember one blog post I was sharing with my students where they said that computers were now writing articles. And I was just like, what? This is crazy. So I learned a little bit more and more about it. There were members of the EduMatch community that were super excited about artificial intelligence and still are. We do something that used to be called Tweet and Talks, like I said, but now it's rebranded as EduMatch Connect. But back in the day, we had folks on Twitter chats and a video panel at the same time. So we did 4 episodes on generative AI. And we also have done a community forum back in January 2023 that just kind of talked about generative AI, and a lot of best practices kind of emerged from that because that was one of the first public kind of community discussions about it at the time after the boom of ChatGPT and Dolly and all that stuff. So we brought the community together, and from that we've done 2 AI summits in education. So speaking specifically to how we might see ourselves represented, as we know, AI is trained on human created materials.
Hmm.
So all of the same isms, all of the same bias, et cetera, it's all there within the generative AI. So that's one thing that I really am passionate about. Passionate about us as educators sharing with our students that misinformation, disinformation, bias is a thing, in the world in general. But when it comes to artificial intelligence, and also encouraging students of color to get into computer science so
Hmm.
that, they'll have a hand to play in artificial intelligence and where it's going. And so in the district where I currently work, then that is also shared by our supervisor. And, there's a very sizable population of students in our district, students of color. So definitely getting the word out to them, advocating for it, advocating for responsible use. But also there is a CTE program that is very heavy on artificial intelligence in our district, and I'm super excited for that. But yeah, I feel like I'm about to go down the rabbit hole about just where we kind of stand right now for artificial intelligence. I remember last week seeing that the head of the copyright office was terminated
Hmm.
because she put out a report critiquing artificial intelligence. So the administration let her go. And to me, that rang all kinds of alarm bells because just because somebody dissents to something, then that's not a reason to terminate them. And I feel like if people are getting shut down for speaking their truth, no matter how much I might be a fan or interested in artificial intelligence, that sets off major red flags in my mind because there has also been a push to not regulate it. So that is, I need to get the exact terminology around it, but that was something that I heard recently that that there is an initiative not to regulate it for the next 10 years. So to me, that sets off all kinds of alarm bells. There's an executive order out right now to promote it in education, which, I think that students do need to know about it, yes. But my question is, with all of the ties to the current administration from millionaires, billionaires, I should say, who are a lot of the people behind the scenes of the artificial intelligence, then what exactly is that going to mean for society? And so that's one thing that we need to know about as educators. Parents need to know about. We need to be very vigilant to be in these spaces with our students to monitor what they're exposed to and help them develop that critical thinking so that they can navigate this space themselves. But it's very dangerous for people to just kind of throw their hands up and be like, I don't want to do anything with it, because if we don't know, then who's gonna help the children know? So that's kind of where I stand on that.
I absolutely appreciate you lifting up a number of things because so many of us. So, like recently, it is in Memphis. They're dealing with Elon Musk's supercomputer for AI in Memphis, and so I'm still trying to track how long that technology has actually been like. It was a deal that somebody made in a back room somewhere, and all of a sudden, in a black community we see this huge supercomputer and all of its fixings in that community. And what we're seeing is people who are experiencing health challenges because of the technology and not having all the guardrails and not actually really sussing this out. And we're seeing that, the Elon Musk of it all is actually doing that in many places. And Elon is a face of some of this, but there are so many others who've been doing this for decades and more.
Hmm.
I also think about the person you talking about is Dr. Jabru, who was working over in Google, right?
Mm.
I think, or so for those who are trying, who might listen to this and want to tap in a little bit more, her name is Dr. Jabru. She authored this piece called "On the Dangers of," I think it's stochastic parrots or something like that. Can the language models be too big? And so here, Dr. Jabru is really just having a conversation at Google and beyond to really make sure that there was an addressing of those biases that show up in the technologies that we're creating and we're utilizing today. And so, because Google is so pervasive and we're using it in so many places, you can imagine that if we don't do the work to make sure our stories that are factual are showing up, that there's an opportunity or missed opportunity that anyone who's using these technologies may also lean in and believe the biases that actually are pervasive in the language models that are being developed. And
Right,
so,
absolutely.
yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to say also that if I misspoke and said Library of Congress, that's because they both happened back to back. But what I was talking about was the firing of the Copyright Office head.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I'm with
Yeah,
you.
so her name was Shira Perlmutter. So my apologies if I am mispronouncing that, but I'm also familiar with what you were talking about before with Dr. Jabru, and my apologies if I'm getting that wrong. But yes, there's a lot of censorship going on and it's really setting off alarm bells.
Yeah, I'm curious. Some of the things that I'm wondering for us, especially as someone who is so deeply seasoned in this work. What are some of the positive ways that you're seeing young people and adults leveraging technologies that are still making sure their voice is heard, their stories are being told, and that they're able to create and innovate in positive ways that may be changing their household or changing their journey or even the communities they learn and reside in.
Yeah, absolutely. So despite all of the all of the alarms that I just set off, then technology has definitely been an empowering force for many young folks in terms of them being able to connect with one another, connect with mentors outside of their field or outside of their circle, their initial circle, as well as to create their own organizations, their own businesses, things of that nature. And a lot of folks are using artificial intelligence for productive reasons. I was just on Facebook recently, and I have to cite good friend Janae Armont, who was talking about how artificial intelligence, just like anything else, it has its pros to it and its cons, but part of the pros are in terms of being able to help with healing and being able to help with the creation process when used, responsibly and ethically. So I am excited about the potentials of what we have in store with artificial intelligence. And equally, like I said, I'm equally having my ears perked up just to make sure that folks are knowledgeable to use it ethically, responsibly, and for positive uses. But absolutely, just young folks being able to share their stories more easily than ever through the use of social media has definitely been a positive, I would say. And we're seeing that, through all of these different apps, the TikToks, the Instagrams, things of that nature. So I love looking back on my former students and seeing exactly what they built for themselves when they share their unique stories, their voices, and things of that nature online.
One of my, I think, last big questions that I'm curious about is, as a Black woman who's leading in the education space, it is not lost on me many times, Black women, no matter how incredibly genius you are, no matter how you live and walk your journey, your purpose, your vision for how you want to help the world be just a little bit better, because you were able to take your talents and bring other folks along who also champion your vision. I'm curious for you and for those who are listening, how has your journey evolved as a Black woman and a woman who's also leading? And what are the ways you are taking care of yourself, or how are you supporting others, whether or not that's through, yeah, I'm leading, so I'm not going to lead, but I'm curious for you as a Black woman who's also a leader. What are the ways that you're taking care of yourself, and what would be some of the insights, or I guess offerings you would share with other Black women who are also trying to figure out how do they navigate this space at this time?
Absolutely. I would say that probably my top piece of advice would deal with authenticity in terms of just knowing yourself and sticking to who you are. There's so much pressure to try to change that to fit into a box. And that is, we don't need more people in boxes. We need more people being themselves to lead the way for other folks to look at and say, okay, she can do it. I can do it. So definitely leaning into that authenticity part. I had kind of a reckoning with myself back in 2014, just because I felt that external pressure to conform. And, I told myself that I wasn't going to do it. That, I needed to stay authentically Sarah. If it works, great. If it doesn't resonate with folks, then that's fine as well. But at least, I can, when I look in the mirror, I know who I'm looking at. I know I'm looking at Sarah. I would also say that erasure is definitely a thing. A lot of times your ideas may be taken and passed off as if they did not originate from you. And just being able to speak up when that does happen, that's been something that I've had to learn, because in the beginning it was just like, oh, well, but I've learned from experiences, I've learned from friends, I've learned from folks that it does matter. It does matter, and to stand up for what you created, stand up for your ideas, stand up for your principles. In terms of how I relax, then I would say a lot of my self-care involves sleep, which is hard to come by these days with a toddler. Yes, definitely sleep. Things that involve the water. So I love the beach. I love water parks. I love the pool, things of that nature. And music, whether it's karaoke or drop in lessons for an instrument or just listening to some great music. I tried to actually do what I used to do back in the day and drive down the street, blast my music one day, and I felt great for about 5 minutes and my ears couldn't take it anymore. Yep,
What,
that's,
what were you listening to?
oh goodness. I was listening to like all of these songs that made you feel like you're in a dream. Like I was listening to, oh goodness. I was listening to some Boys to Men, Please Don't Go. I was
Right.
listening to Fantasia. What was that Fantasia song? You want me, then don't talk to me. Free Yourself. Yeah, all of those that have that dreamy type of instrumental. What was another one? Ooh, no Juvenile this time. I do love my Juvenile though, so
Yes.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, yeah. Just like the little dreamy type music. I could dig it. PM Dawn. That was the first one. Die Without You. So yep,
Okay,
yeah.
you dug deep into the
Deep.
canon. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
PM
how I
Dawn.
get down.
I haven't heard PM Dawn
Yeah.
in a while.
Oh, that instrumental though, if you blast that, it makes you feel like you're asleep. It's crazy.
All right. So
Yeah.
for those who are trying to figure out how, like, melatonin ain't working for you, maybe PM Dawn should be the thing you should go ahead and take.
There you go.
All right. So before you go, I would love to engage in a little bit of a game. And so, just have a little fun. For me, it's just I'll hit you with some rapid fire scenarios. You tell me if you like, yep, I absolutely am brave enough to do that. You're like, nah, I'm all set. Okay.
Hey,
So,
I'm a punk, so I'll put that out there first.
all right. Well, I know that you had shared that you're that now you're a vegetarian, right?
Hmm.
And so I know in the DMV crabs is a huge thing. And so
Mm,
at some point, did you actually go to any backyard bashes or picnics or
mm.
gatherings where you ate crabs and you didn't have no bib on, no mallet, no instructions, just enjoyed the vibe?
I've only had crabs maybe like 3 times in my life. That's the only times I've eaten crabs. Yeah, because I turned vegetarian like way back. Like I was like
Ooh,
maybe 10 years old. So,
ooh.
but I do remember with fondness going to this restaurant down the street with my parents. But we had mallets, so But
Okay.
there was a lot of butter sauce. I remember that part too.
Hmm.
Corn on the cob. It was good. It was
Okay.
really good.
What are some vegetarian alternatives that you get turned up on that you're trying to introduce folks to?
Oh, Morningstar.
Mm,
Morningstar. That is my jam. I love Morningstar. Like, yeah, yeah. So they have like some really good protein and it tastes great.
okay. Okay. Is the wonderful 3-year old also a vegetarian as well?
No, she eats everything, but she's not really a huge meat eater, but whenever she has it, then it's all good. It's all good.
Okay. Are you someone who would go full out in a go-go line dance at a DC block party?
It depends if I'm DJing or not. Like,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I used to DJ way back in the day. Actually, it wasn't that far back. I quit during the pandemic. I used to have to be the first one out there to get the crowd started.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't dance.
Okay. I did.
Yeah.
Okay. I learned something new today. I didn't even know you DJ'd. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how did I miss that?
Oh, I don't know. I guess like it in our that probably never came up because I kind of kept them separated.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay. That's
yeah.
good to know. Okay. So would you rap both verses of Wale's Pretty Girls at karaoke?
Probably not. Probably not. Because at karaoke, I mostly sing, but
Hmm. Okay.
every now and then I'll do some Cardi B, but yeah, but not too much. I'll rap Waterfalls from TLC. That always gets the crowd going because I can do it without the screams.
Water. Hey. Nice, nice. All right. So thank you so much for engaging this game.
Thank
I'm
you.
curious for those who want to stay connected to you, learn more about your incredible genius, bring your work to their school or community. How would they be able to do that?
Well, thank you so much for asking. So you can find me at edumatch.org. You can find me all over the socials as Sarah the Teacher. So that's Sarah, like my first name, Dateechur. And also in terms of the work, then we have a brand new solution for schools, districts, and organizations on digital equity specifically. And what it does is that it helps take educators through a journey through their own journey of digital equity. We've left it, as reflective as possible, as open ended as possible, with also getting that feedback from the course facilitator. But it culminates in them creating their own digital equity action plan, which is so important right now because the work is being challenged. The work is under attack right now. So we have to have something. Like I know that folks have all kinds of constrictions on them. So I can't speak to everybody's situation, but no matter what constrictions you're under, if the language has to change, it doesn't matter. Just keep doing the work. Make sure that the kids get what they need. So
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Sarah Thomas, I so appreciate you spending time with me and being part and now joining the Brave Voices in Ed family. I hope that you also enjoyed your time here
I
and
did.
may come back because you have new evolutions and new things, and maybe we'll talk about DJing. Because
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's a whole new world. I was like, okay, okay,
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I would love to. I'd be honored to come back. So appreciate you.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Well, well, that's a wrap for us, family, on this episode of Brave Voices in Education. If something stirred in you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share this with your village, your team, your brave ones, because brave leadership isn't just about the title, it's about the testimony. And if you are building bold classrooms, curriculum with teeth, or schools that live louder and love louder than they punish, we want to hear from you. Come be a guest, grab our Unbreakable guide, come be part of the movement at bravevoicespod.com. Until next time, generate your own joy, never go alone, get free, and as always, love your